Hello, this is FoodOffensive.com's weekly Fukushima update, and I've been bringing you a few, trying to bring you a few this week to get caught up. I haven't been doing this for a couple of weeks, but I wanted to bring a couple here that were very important, I believe, to the whole Fukushima disaster, and it's not only concerning Japan, but it's also the rest of the world. Obviously the winds blow this way, and the ocean current, so we're going to be the first recipients of some of this, and as we've seen already that we have been through the rain and things washing up along the Alaskan coast and California as well. But I wanted to bring you a report here from the Mail Online, and it's titled "Fukushima Nuclear Disaster Was Man-Made," says damning new report. This is by Anthony Bond. This was put out pretty recently, July 5th, 2012. And before we go too far, this is not some conspiracy thing where this article is not referring to something where we actually created it, but he explains why, in the article, why we say that. And basically it says, the nuclear accident at Fukushima in Japan last year was a man-made disaster and not completely caused by the devastating tsunami, a new report has said. It goes on to say, the TEPCO Fukushima nuclear power plant accident was the result of collusion between the government, the regulators, and TEPCO, and the lack of governance by both parties. So it was more of a negligence thing. They're saying it could have been possibly either diverted or completely prevented if man would have done what we were supposed to do on our end. And it just goes and shows some of the pictures. This is the workers pictured and spraying water to cool down the spent fuel rods 2 weeks after the disaster. You can see the exposed building, and I'll look later why that's important. And in the last video, I pointed out as well how it's exposed, and any future disaster before that place is completely cleaned up could cause some major issues and another meltdown, even of worse magnitude than we've already seen. More pictures of the damaged facility. This is the explosion on March 14th. Unit number 3. The article goes on to say, we believe that the root causes were the organizational and regulatory systems that supported faulty rationales for decisions and actions, rather than issues relating to the competency of any specific individual. So not really blaming any one person, but the regulatory system, organizationally, things like that. This was the plant before. This was in 2008. This was before the tsunami, the disaster. You can see the buildings intact there. And then this is 8 days after the explosion, and so you can see 2 of the 4 there are pretty much gone. The one is definitely gone. And then you can see 4, I believe that's 4 on our left there, just off screen a little bit. That's the one that's still there, and that contains some of the most tonnage of spent fuel rods that there are in all the whole facility. It says that this is saying that an early report by plant operator Tokyo Electric Power, or TEPCO, had all but cleared the huge facility, saying the size of the earthquake and tsunami was beyond all expectations and could not have reasonably been foreseen. But there's been an independent group of scholars and journalists, etc., who have reported their findings in February that said TEPCO could and should have done more. It goes back to the fact that we've built a nuclear facility right on a fault line in a country that's exposed and who is prone to earthquakes regularly and tsunamis, the resulting tsunamis, as we've seen. And it takes a disaster like this for us to really wake up and see that. Now the article goes on. Government and TEPCO have been unwilling to say the reactors could have been damaged by the initial earthquake. Tectonically volatile Japan has a network of nuclear reactors that, until Fukushima, had supplied around a third of the nation's electricity. So they rely on it hugely. Being on an island, secluded like that, it would be more expensive, to ship coal in and things like that. So they rely on the nuclear power. And then this article also just lists a whole kind of a timeline of how the earthquake led to the Fukushima nuclear disaster, and you can look at that yourself, going back all the way from the initial 9.0 earthquake that hit, leading to the tsunami, and then it goes all the way through 2012, and up to July 5th of 2012 at the time of this article, when they said that it was a man-made disaster. Also, the last part of this article says, in December last year, a long-range timetable was announced for the decommissioning of the Fukushima reactors. The work will be completed by 2052. I mean, you're talking about 40 years from now. What's going to happen if there's a disaster before they can somehow get these fuel pools contained and so on and so forth? And that kind of brings me to the other article I wanted to look at. It's by Fuel Fix. It says, Fukushima plant faces typhoon summer with added tornado threat. This was back in June of 22nd of 2012. Posted by Bloomberg in Nuclear. So Fuel Fix is just reposting this article, basically pointing out the fact that a future typhoon or disaster of that nature could cause more issues with the exposed buildings, especially reactor number 4 that we looked at on the last video, about how it contains a lot of fuel rods and it's extremely volatile to it's sensitive to any disaster that could come its way. Basically, this article says the nuclear plant faces its second typhoon season since the March 11 disaster last year, raising the risk of further radiation leaks if storms thrash exposed pools of uranium fuel rods or tanks holding the contaminated water. And it talks about various things in this article of why it can be exposed, and also it said the typhoon has already hit it was early this year, about 106 miles southwest of the Fukushima Daiichi facility, so it missed it this time, but you never know what could happen. A research professor at Kyushu University has pointed out the fact that the fuel pools in number 3 and number 4 are completely exposed. He says are naked, and so it could cause a huge issue if a tornado came. And also they point out the fact that this tornado risk, it could actually it could hit the building, pull the water up out of the fuel pools that are the water that's being used to cool off the rods, and then obviously if those are dry, if that becomes dry and then there's nothing to fuel or cool down the fuel rods, then obviously they'll start to melt down and get hot. So concerning the tornado risk, when someone with TEPCO was asked about, it looks like a general manager at the utility was asked on May 7th about tornadoes, he says, it may be necessary to investigate the possibility of tornadoes in Fukushima, but we don't plan to take any action at the moment. So kind of a laissez-faire, kind of a laid-back attitude, I would say, concerning the danger. I mean, obviously they don't want to scare people, and I don't want to scare people either, but it's something that we need to have a little bit more of a sense of urgency about, obviously. Water leaks, talking about water leaks, TEPCO's Matsumoto said he isn't aware of any internal discussions about tornado impact. TEPCO is more concerned about a building cover, he said. Well, that's all good and fine. That would sound logical, but let me go on here. It says the cover is designed to withstand winds of 25 meters per second or 56 miles per hour. And an F3 level tornado has wind speeds of 70 to 90 meters per second under the Fujita scale, according to the weather agency, which is 70 to 90 would be over 3 times what a cover could withstand. So we need to look at that as well. We need to learn from our mistakes here and figure out when enough is not enough concerning safety. And then to end this article here before I run out of time, it says it's a little subtitle called Soteigai not, and it explains what Soteigai is in Japanese. Basically, when talking about when the TEPCO executives were informed about the tsunami, about a potential of a tsunami being, their plant being hit, they were just they weren't really concerned. And it says this gentleman, the president, who resigned after the disaster, that such a tsunami was it was soteigai, which means it was unforeseen. That means unforeseen. So he was warned of it. They were all warned of it by many people and by their own research showing that there's a potential risk there, but yet they said it was unforeseen. And so this person, former chairman of Japan's Science and Technology Agency, said in February 28 report, he said, speaking of Soteigai is an excuse for giving up on risk management. So we need to look at that, and going back to the petition and holding people accountable for things that were overlooked and disregarded, clear things. But until next time, this is FoodOffensive.com's weekly Fukushima update. Thank you for joining me.